sinks low over shimmering waters. On the islands, sea oats wave in the breeze. Foam billows from the bow of a passing shrimp boat. The lighthouse beckons us home. The harbor waits to welcome the day's catch. Tonight there will be shrimp and blue crabs for supper. In this historic place of magic and mystery, the world of Joe Moran lives on. Joe Moran was born in 1915 to a family of fourth-generation Biloxi boat builders. He loved the old schooners. He painted ribbons on boats as a child. He shrimped. He raced sailboats. And he designed boats in the most creative ways.
In order to design and build a boat, you had to be a real good artist to begin with. To be able to draw your own boat and lay it out and take a table of offsets off of it. He was very observant. I could show you on one of those models in there that if you look at the model close, the entire design of the boat is really the backside of a porpoise flipped over. Because he knew a porpoise was a fast swimming fish in the water. The race boat, way ahead of its time. And that boat was built in '63. And he was more or less told, never mind the rules, let's build a boat that'll outrun anything. So he guessed it was running right close to 96 to 100 mile an hour. And he was so accurate with his speed and stuff that he turned right around. He would take, say, a Michigan wheel prop, and he would alter them and cut them the way he wanted them. And he would actually notify the manufacturers of what he's done with one of their wheels and how much it improved it. And today, the cleavage wheels you see on these offshore race boats, in fact, almost all of your fast boats, is of what he done and called a bat wing to the same wheels back in the 50s and 60s.
Joe married Dorothy Davis and began a family of 11 children. He worked for Higgins Marine and redesigned the PT boat to make it faster. His boat building business was booming when disaster struck in 1947.
He was producing 35 boats a week with 35 men. He had just set up to produce 50 boats a week, and he had an order in from one of the big oil companies for 500 boats, and all the material came in right before this hurricane. When the hurricane hit, he took all that material up the river where he said people were even nailing it up in their houses so they couldn't reclaim it and things. Everything he had was in that business. Every home he owned in New Orleans and in Biloxi, in a service station, he sold it all and put it into that business and lost it all.
Once again, Joe rebuilt his business, and once again, tragedy. His young son was killed in 1954 when a tunnel he had dug in freshly pumped-in sand collapsed on him.
The biggest change I seen in his life was when my brother passed away. He turned right around. Things didn't matter anymore. Humans were so much more important and more valuable than any material possession, because any kind of material possession could be replaced, a human couldn't.
Finally, a fateful day in 1959 ended the career Joe loved when a boat he was painting fell on him.
But rather than drop the boat, he strained and brought it back up. And then we set it on some sawhorses. He sat on a sawhorse then and said he didn't feel good. And that night he and I went to a theater, because he always loved to go to and sit in the old hard wooden chairs, and he twists and tossed and turned. He could not get comfortable. The next morning he was paralyzed.
Joe had shifted his heart from its socket. He was confined to bed for a year. To cheer him, his doctor asked him to draw. This first drawing was so realistic, judges at an art show thought it was a photograph.
It was kind of miraculous that he could draw and had that kind of perception to be able to make it look like a photograph when it wasn't. And he was told to do anything other than heavy lifting and all, to draw, paint, do something to get his mind off himself, and he kind of shocked the world with his talent.
Joe's incredible talent stunned his friends. They speculated he had simply inherited it from his late grandfather, George Orr, Biloxi's legendary Mad Potter. Joe studied books on Renoir and the old masters. He took lessons from New York artist William Steen when his paintings caught the attention of E.W. Blossman, a Coast art collector.
We liked his paintings. We thought he was an incredible artist. So we started collecting his paintings. And we have a wonderful collection of Joe's paintings.
The Blossmans commissioned dozens of paintings and murals, many several feet tall. Their patronage provided Joe steady work, which allowed him to develop and perfect his artistry and support his 10 children.
We gave him his first showing, and that was a huge success. When everybody saw what he could do with a sort of a mini-mass collection, then they realized how fine an artist he was. And I loved all his paintings, and I thought they were very remarkable, and I compared them to Bill Steen's portraits and paintings, which we have quite a few of. One painting I have of flowers, I told Joe, I said, Bill was holding your hand when you painted that, because it looks exactly like Bill Steen had painted it, and yet it was Joe's. And it's just a beautiful floral painting.
Joe soon became a local celebrity.
I did a program called Good Morning South Mississippi for 10 years, and I think Joe was a big part of that program. He was a special guest. I had a segment, Artist of the Week, and he was my Artist of the Week a lot. He started out with 2 figure 8s in charcoal, and I thought, oh, we're in trouble. But those figure 8s turned into a beautiful, beautiful charcoal print. And I don't, to this day, I don't know how he did that. You know, you see all these people on camera now, and they paint by numbers and tricks. There was no trick to it. He just started out with 2 figure 8s and made the coast come alive. In my opinion, Joe was very special to the coast in that he captured it for us. He took us beyond that point, and it just, you know, you see something and it's gone, and he'd see something and I guess it would live on through his art.
My mother had a lady, was going to do a ladies' luncheon in the courtyard. And so the lady said, oh, Mary, I love this courtyard, but suppose it rains, where will we go? So Mother just got through completing the carriage house, and it was a brand new building. And so the lady walked in there and said, oh, Mary, the walls in here are so bad, you're going to have to do something with them. So that's when Mother said she called upon the Holy Spirit for a little guidance. So she called up her good friend Joe Moran, and Mother told Joe what she had in mind. And so what Joe did, he got the Biloxi Art Association, the Singing River Art Association, the Gulf Coast Art Association. And so what he did, he got 33 artists to come down there and have a workshop on Mother's walls. So what we have there, we have 33 original paintings on the walls, and which really, it's like a little museum in there, and of course, and Joe's the one that coordinated all that and got all the artists to do it, and I tell Mama that's the biggest coup she ever pulled off. She got 33 artists to do a painting on her walls and got them all to do it for free.
I taught school for 44 years, and during the 44 years of teaching, I would always bring my students here to talk to Joe Moran. He always treated the students like they were very, very special. And every time a student went away from here, that student was inspired. And as a result, we were able to put out 9 marine resource booklets, marine-related stories. Another thing is that I loved his paintings. Oh, I loved his paintings so much. And when I would come up here, he knew I didn't have much money. I didn't. I was a school teacher, and I came up very, very poor. not having much in the line of art, literature at all. So I'd admire his work, and maybe he would have on this painting behind us a $1,500 price tag, and Joe Moran would give that to me for $500. And I could pay for this painting on time as long as it took me. So the painting behind you was obtained from Joe on time, and I cherish that to this day. And he could capture the beauty of the sunsets. He captured those because he loved them, he appreciated them, and he knew that we were very, very fortunate to live in one of the most beautiful environments in the world.
Mr. Moran was teaching art, and I took a course from him, and I learned the language of dissent. And what Mr. Moran talked about is that everything that we experience, whether it's joy or sorrow, has a seed for creativity. And that what we have to do is we have to transform. We have to take that darkness and make it a new light. And through the years, if you know Mr. Moran's story, he later on he had a heart attack. So again, he had to do a transformation. And out of that developed this tremendous center. And once you've met an artist of that caliber, they live from their center. So what they do is they awaken the awareness of that center in other people. And that's what he awakened in me. I think what's really special about his work is that everything is sacred and everything belongs, that he has recorded a history that will live on forever.
One of the things that I really like more than anything else is the fact that he had such an abiding interest in painting the Mississippi scenes on the Gulf Coast. That is the shrimp boat and the shrimp boat scenes, and they were so vivid and so pretty. And one of the things that I tried to emulate after I took a number of classes from him was to attempt to paint a shrimp boat. I have one of his paintings that I just sit there and look at it, marvel at it almost every day. And it's a trawler that's coming at you on a quarter, pushing a big wave in front of it, and it's just a beautiful, beautiful boat. Mr. Joe's work, I think, brings that to the fore and keeps that in front of all of us in terms of the history of the uniqueness of the city and the surrounding area, and he does it in such a marvelous way because he can paint, and he did paint the old schooners that were out in the Sound for many, many years before I guess the modern shrimp boats came along, particularly the steel hulls. But the fact that he painted those is going to be a big part of looking back at the history and the uniqueness of the Biloxi area.
I watched Mr. Moran paint, and I came in his studio many, many times when he was painting, and I always admired his work. Of course, we were going back and forth. Being from the boating family that he was really from, we spent a lot of time on the water, and we fished and sailed, and I just watched him paint, and deep down in my heart, I always knew that as I purchased this, of course, being a family friend and probably not having a lot that a lot of people did that could come in and purchase, I paid for it a little along, and in my heart, I knew that one day it would be the way it is today. I was talking to one of his daughters yesterday, and in particular, one of the pictures, and I said, you know, I get up there, I've already had several people call me and try to purchase the red that I own. And I get up every morning, I drink coffee, and I look at this picture, and I guess you can sum it up as she said, okay, what's it worth? And I said, it has no value, it's not for sale. Just the paintings themselves speak for themselves. Coming in here, and we'd look and say, Mr. Moran, what is this and what is that? And he'd always had time for us. He was just part of the coast. You turned at the lighthouse and you went to Moran's.
I know we have pictures hanging at City Hall that's on loan from the family, and when people come in there and they look at it, a lot of times, you know, several of them I think were sold by them being hung in the City Hall. the boats, the shrimp boats that was at the time, and in the Deer Island and the factories. That's what it was when we were growing up. That's what I worked in the factories, and right down from where his shipyard was at the time, a long time ago. And it's just Biloxi. I mean, the Biloxi lugger. That's what these boats are, and that's what he's best at, in my opinion.
Joe's work received national acclaim. 2 of his paintings were owned by presidents and hung in the White House. Senator Jim Eastland hung his portrait in the U.S. Capitol. Joe was named one of America's top 10 artists at the Paris exhibition, and the Smithsonian requested 4 of his works. Joe did refuse to travel the world to collect these honors. He simply didn't want to leave his beloved coast and his colorful waves. But those waters turned on him in 1969 when Hurricane Camille ripped into his home and studio.
The water's coming in, and I remember my younger brothers and sisters put their life jackets on because we knew it was going to be deep. We wasn't sure if we were trapped already. We thought we were far enough in. That's why we didn't evacuate. A lot of people didn't, because this was the worst hurricane we've ever had. We had 200-mile-an-hour winds with 250-mile-an-hour gusts, and most of them average 100 to 150 miles an hour, which are devastating as they are. And Camille, we went out the back of the building, and we went up 2 more houses because our ground was higher in the back than the front. And that water line came all the way up. We're 17 feet above sea level. That water line came all the way up to where the building we were staying with our neighbor.
Once again, Joe lost everything, including 200 paintings. As he rebuilt his home, there was an amazing discovery.
And Mom goes, "We found skeletons under the house," and I'm like, "Oh no, not hurricane victims," you know. And she's like, no, these are just skeletons, but they were real old. And of course we had the coroner and the police department, everybody, they taped everything off with the yellow rope, and they started doing testing on them and uncovering them, and we had the state archaeologists come in so they slowly uncover them with brushes and stuff, and there were 13 skeletons, and they believed to be the early settlers around 1699. They average them 300 to 500 years old. And so that was quite a shock for the family.
Joe took this news in typical stride. He opened his graveyard to the public as a state historical site. Both Mary and her brother Tommy inherited their father's love for the coast and his talent.
Well, I started drawing because I saw Daddy drawing. I was like, well, I want to try that, you know, and he couldn't hardly keep me away from him. And he'd pick up a paintbrush to paint, and so finally, on the big backdrops, I was probably about 5 or 6 then, but he'd give me a paintbrush and said, "Here, go fill in, go paint me a tree over here." And he actually let me work with him on some of the Mardi Gras backdrops, and so I started painting at a very early age. Throughout his painting years, he actually influenced all of us as children to appreciate life and look at things in a different way. So you'd be driving along the beach and he'll see a sunset and point out, "Look how beautiful the colors are. Look how the colors are reflecting in the waves, and look at the sand." He'd just point out a lot of little things in life and really appreciate and love life.
Joe was diagnosed with Parkinson's disease in the 1980s and began a slow and sad decline. Although he could barely see, he struggled to paint until he could no longer hold a brush in 1993. He died in 1999. Joe's final paintings were, as always, of the boats. With this, his final sunset.
We should have recognized him before his death, because he was a great Biloxian and he was a good friend of everybody. I don't believe he ever had an enemy in his life, and every time anyone would come there, he would explain how he built the boats,
And then he took his art to all of the school children and taught them how to do drawings and paintings and things like that. Most Biloxians, and Joe is one of them, is self-taught. And once he put the brush to the drawing board and everything, it just came out, it flowed out. He's sadly missed, but we knew that his professionalism and everything that he did will be an asset to his family, to the community, and the state of Mississippi, and the entire world. And things like that only come once in a lifetime, and Joe was one of those special people of once in a lifetime. And we're thankful that he was from Biloxi, Mississippi, and we're awful proud of him. And I think that eventually there will be a museum that will be in his honor, because he excelled himself, and he was self-taught. He was a great person, great historian, and everything about him excels. And that's great with Joe Moran.
Joe Moran's art represents Biloxi's history when life was slower in simpler days. And even toward the end of his life, Joe believed his work was far from finished.